Hello guys, good morning everybody. Welcome to our YouTube channel. I hope I'm audible to you and you guys are fit and fine. If I'm audible and visible, just let me know in the comment box whether I'm audible and visible or not. Just let me know. Those who are live with me, good morning everybody, good morning. Just let me and give me a confirmation whether I'm audible and visible. Right, thank you so much. Okay. So I hope you liked the new approach that we followed it yesterday. So we will try to continue to build on that particular approach, and I saw your response, saw your comments, and it was an overwhelming response. So I thought that I would be continuing with this particular kind of approach. Now, not only for the editorials part, but for the whole newspaper, I will try to make sure that I try to, let's say, formulate this whole newspaper, the important points and the news in this flowchart or the type of thing that we did yesterday, right? Chaliye. Now, let's try to begin the news for today. I think you can see over here. Yesterday I told you as well, there's going to be a meeting of SCO heads of states, right? So, SCO calls for a multipolar world order as Iran joins the grouping. Now, let's try to dwell more on this particular SCO, right? When was it found? What is its mandate? Which are the members of SCO? What is the recent thing that has happened? What are the joint declarations that have been made by the SCO members? And what are the areas where India has not, let's say, given a joint statement and it has basically stayed away from those particular declarations? So, let's try to figure that out. Now, if we say, now with Iran formally joining the group, now SCO has 9 members. India and Pakistan were made the member of SCO in the year 2017. Now with Iran formally joining the group, SCO has 9 members. These are China, India, Iran, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Pakistan, Russia, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. ये हमारे पास अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं, there are total how many members? There are now 9 members who are a part of the SCO grouping. This is the first time that India has hosted SCO. Yes, India became a member in 2017. So, India hosted SCO for the first time in this particular, let's say, video conferencing के through India ने सबसे पहली बार hold किया. Now, SCO was formed in the year 2001 on 15th June. Now, these are very, very important facts that we need to remember, because we have seen in UPSC, now the questions are directly coming if we talk about the prelims statement based, right? If you know the statement, you can attempt it, because elimination method has taken a backseat right now, right? So, you need to know the actual facts related to SCO as well. It was formed on 15 June 2001 and headquarters is in Beijing, that is China. So, these are the important points that we have to understand. And yesterday I told you as well, if I talk about from the domain of SCO, it basically, its main purpose is to make sure that there is the proper security that is maintained around these Eurasian countries. I hope this point is clear to everybody. Now, let's try to look at the members again through the map thing, right? This is also very important thing that we need to know the member states as well. I think everyone could see over here. We have the Russia over here. We have Kazakhstan. We have Kyrgyzstan. We have Uzbekistan. Tajikistan, Iran अभी इन्होंने ऐड नहीं किया. The map has not been updated by the SCO website. I have taken it from the website. Then we have Republic of India, Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and we have the People's Republic of China, right? So these are the important points that we need to remember. The 9 members of SCO plus when was it formed. Now, if we talk about SCO, its highest decision making body is heads of the state council. Very important. Yesterday, the meeting that happened was between the heads of the state through video conferencing. So, the highest decision making body is what? Highest decision making body is heads of state council, which usually meet, very important, once a year. This point is also very important to remember. यार ये कितनी बार मिलते हैं? ये मिलते हैं once a year. Now, we know the background. What is the main purpose of SCO? Now, let's try to figure out what were the highlights of the meeting. Very important. there was a consensus that there needs to be a multipolar world order. Very important. I think everyone is now agreeing to this fact. There can't be a unipolar world considering how many different countries are now, let's say, peaking at their powers like India, China. So there can't be a unipolar world, or let's say bipolar world. That was the time during the after the Second World War. So they have called for a multipolar world order. This is the first highlight of the meeting. Second is they want to counter radicalization. That is a part of the security dialogue. Third thing that is very important is there is a joint statement on digital transformation. This is very, very important because everyone knows that this is the era and age of digital world, and everything is related to now digital technology. So they want to make sure that the countries have a consensus on digital transformation. But there were certain issues where India didn't have the consensus on. I think those issues are quite obvious. It is related to certain initiatives of China. What are those? It was basically the Belt and the Road Initiative and the dialogue on economic cooperation, where India stayed out of these particular joint statements. Moreover, there was a harsh, we could say, criticism that was done by our Prime Minister, and it was basically targeted at the terrorism that is being sponsored by Pakistan. So this has been the highlight, if I have to tell you about what? About Shanghai Cooperation Organization. See, one thing you have to understand, there is not only the heads of the states that are meeting, there are also the foreign councils that are meeting, but this meeting that took place yesterday was between the heads of the state. Now, I told you earlier when this dialogue was formed, this SCO was formed, its main purpose was the security part. But now they have expanded their scope to digital technologies, to defense, to economic cooperation, to cultural cooperation. Last year, Varanasi has been made, very important, this is a very, very important prelims fact, Varanasi has been made the cultural capital of SCO, very important. So they are also trying to make sure that we have a cooperation on the basis of culture as well. So this is all about SCO that you guys need to remember. The name of the members, when does Iran join the grouping, when did India and Pakistan join the grouping, when was it formed, where are its headquarters, what were the highlights of the meeting, what is the highest decision making body. So these are the points that you guys need to remember, right guys? So this was the most important news that we need to remember from today's newspaper. Okay, now this was the most important thing, and it was a front page news that we have. Moving on, this is all the related to certain political thing that has been going on, right? Speaker delaying the disqualification process. I think सबको पता है कि महाराष्ट्र में एक बहुत बड़ा political chaos हो चुका है, खिचड़ी पक चुकी है, and recent being Ajit Pawar now being sworn in as the Deputy CM of Maharashtra. So there are a lot of issues that are going on between the state of Maharashtra, right? So ये एक बड़ा issue अपने आप में ही एक बहुत बड़ा issue है, right? And nothing important if we talk about in today's newspaper apart from that particular news that was related to one and only one thing, that is related to Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Now, moving to the next part, I hope that point is clear to everybody, SCO wala part, right? Now, yesterday, our president paid tribute to, I think you can see over here, Alluri Sitarama Raju, very important, Alluri Sitarama Raju. Now, he is a very great freedom fighter that India had, and let's try to discuss more about this particular person, that is Alluri Sitarama Raju. There was a Telugu movie as well by the name of Alluri Sitaram Raju. That is why if we talk about its importance is great, because these type of questions we have seen in the modern history that comes in the exams, right? We can say these are the peripheral questions or these are the subsidiary questions that come in the exams. Now, let's try to see what is, or let's discuss more about Alluri Sitarama Raju. See, if I talk about Alluri Sitarama Raju, he was born in the state of Andhra Pradesh. So this is a very important fact that we guys need to remember, that he was born in Andhra Pradesh, and yesterday was his 125th birth year celebration. Very important. Yesterday was its 125th birth year celebration, and every year on 4th of July, Government of Andhra Pradesh celebrate it as a state festival. That is the birth anniversary of Alluri Sitarama Raju. So this is an important prelims fact that we guys need to remember, that his birthday is being celebrated by the Government of Andhra Pradesh as the state festival. Now, let's try to discuss more about the achievements, or we can say the involvement of Alluri Sitarama Raju in India's struggle for independence. See, under the influence of non-cooperation movement, he inspired the tribal. See, उन्होंने इंस्पायर किया ट्राइबल्स को टू सीक जस्टिस इन लोकल कोर्ट्स एंड पंचायत. वन थिंग यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड that when I talk about non-cooperation movement, it was all about boycotting the foreign goods and following the indigenous goods. Everything used to be related to Savdeshi thing, right? So we used to ditch the courts that were made by the British, and we thought, or Gandhiji thought, that it's better that there shall be local courts and panchayats where the tribals can go and seek justice in that particular local courts and panchayats. So this was a mode of, let's say, one thing, this is very, very important. You can understand that how ट्राइबल्स रिवोल्टेड. ट्राइबल्स ने ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ गुरिल्ला वॉरफेयर ही करी है, राइट? उन्होंने, अगर हम बात करें, उन्होंने लड़ाइयां ही लड़ी हैं, उन्होंने कोर्ट का रास्ता भी अपनाया है, जैसे कि हमें यहां से पता चलता है फ्रॉम द नॉन कॉपरेशन मूवमेंट. बट when Alluri Sitarama Raju became unsatisfied with this particular mode of, let's say, revolt against the British government, he followed a very, very important mode of warfare, that is the guerrilla warfare, and that was evident in the Rampa rebellion or the Manyam rebellion. Very, very important. So he inspired tribals and lead them to a Rampa rebellion. Now, what was this Rampa or the Manyam rebellion that I'm talking you about? See, if we talk about the area of Andhra Pradesh, if we talk about tribals, there was a certain mode of agricultural practice that they used to follow, that is called the Podu system of cultivation. Very important. They used to follow what? They used to follow the Podu system of cultivation, where they would be clearing the lands and moving to certain another land, or you can say it is a form of a shifting cultivation. But British were not happy with this particular type of practice that was being followed by this particular tribals, that is a Podu system of cultivation or the shifting cultivation. As a result, they passed the prohibitory orders and they said no, you cannot do this, and they protected their free movement in the tribal areas or in the tribal forest. So as a result, against the prohibitory orders that was passed by the government against the Podu system of cultivation, Alluri Sitarama Raju waged a rebellion by the name of Rampa or the Manyam rebellion in order to make sure that the tribals get their rights. But he fought a 2-year war and ultimately he was tied to a tree and shot dead. But his success and achievement is unparalleled when we talk about he was seeking justice for the tribals in our India struggle for independence. So this name becomes very, very important. I hope this point is clear to everybody, the achievements of Alluri Sitarama Raju. Right guys? Chali. Okay, so this was the important news that I wanted to discuss with you guys. Now, there are certain editorials that have come in today's newspaper, but two of them are very important that we will try to discuss. This is related to GST, right? GST, they are talking about certain, we can say, loopholes that they are trying to talk about GST, right? There are certain items that are out of the purview of GST. I can write down the loopholes, right? So this is the short editorial that we can discuss over here only. First is, there are certain items out of the purview of GST. Like petroleum, alcohol, right? Second thing is, GST compensation cess initially was sought for the period of 5 years, but after the COVID-19 pandemic, it has been increased or it will be levied up to the year of 2026. So this is the second loophole that they are talking about, because ultimately it has to be paid by the consumer. This is the second thing that they are talking about here. Third thing is, there is still not signs of setting up of GST appellate tribunal. So this is the third loophole that you can mention it over here. And fourth is, GST Council needs to meet more often. So these are the four loopholes that they have tried to tell us in this particular editorial, that is an incomplete reform, right? So that is why they have the headline or the tagline, despite the gains, the indirect tax regime is yet to become truly simple or efficient. I think everyone is aware of the historic collections that we have been witnessing in the GST regime, right? Every month it has been touching or passing the 1.4 lakh crore mark, right? So the revenues are coming great from GST, but these are the certain areas which needs to be worked upon, that is making sure कि जो items preview से बाहर है उनको हम साथ में लेके आएं. Second thing is important, that GST compensation cess, if we talk about, it has been levied or extended till 2026. The third point is related to GST appellate tribunal, and fourth point is related to GST council needs to meet more and more often. So these are the four areas that needs to be worked upon if we need to reform the overall GST regime. So these are the things that have been highlighted in this particular editorial. Right. सेकेंड लूप होल इज जीएसटी कंपनसेशन सेस, राइट, के अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं कंपनसेशन सेस को उन्होंने बढ़ा दिया गया है. ओके, नाउ this editorial is very interesting because it will tell you more about the fiscal health or the fiscal policy that you guys have studied in economics, right? So the question over here is macro view of the fiscal health of the states. Now let's try to understand this whole editorial, that is the fiscal health of the states. See, one thing you have to understand, during the COVID-19 pandemic, because it was certain unprecedented, or we can say pandemic, that there was lot of, we could say, expenditure that was mooted towards health and education, right? So there was a lot of untoward expenditure that came in front of center and the states. As a result, fiscal deficit increased of both the union and the states. But over the time, after the 2 or 3 years after the COVID-19 pandemic, there are signs of recovering of the fiscal deficit, that it is getting reduced for both the center as well as the states. So this is the editorial that they want to talk about, कि fiscal health की अगर हम बात करें, it is now improving slowly and slowly. So the question is, how is this fiscal deficit improving slowly and slowly? What are the steps that have been taken by the center or by the states which has led to the reduction of the fiscal deficit? So those points are, states have become fiscally prudent. When we talk about fiscally prudent, prudent means wise, means they are rationalizing their expenditure and they are making sure that they are increasing their sources of revenue. So this is the first part. Second is union state coordination. See, whenever, let's say, expenditure has to be made by the states, it could be the centers are helping the states in making sure that they are getting certain very low interest loans, right? So this could be one of the situation which has helped in basically reduction of the fiscal deficit. Third thing is reprioritize expenditure, very important. That is, reprioritize expenditure, that states have looked into this particular matter and they have known this particular thing, that they need to make sure that they have to rationalize their expenditure. They have to make sure that they are not spending in an unwise manner. Fourth important thing that we have already discussed, that GST collections over the 10-month mark, if I see, there have been the collections that are going beyond the 1.4 lakh crore mark. If revenue is coming more, and as a result, fiscal deficit situation will improve. And the fifth thing is, non-GST revenues are also showing signs of recovery. That is the income tax, or you can say the corporate tax. They are also showing the signs of recovery. So as a result, overall, if I talk about in this particular situation, fiscal deficit has reduced because of these particularly 5 factors. Is this point clear? So this article talks about, yes, fiscal deficit has reduced, but there is a certain catch that we need to understand. What is that catch? They are saying fiscal deficit has reduced, but if we talk about in fiscal deficit, there is a component called revenue deficit as well. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, there were certain states that were revenue surplus. Those were the revenue surplus states. But after the COVID-19 pandemic, revenue deficit as a proportion of fiscal deficit has increased in certain states. Earlier they were saying there used to be, if we talk about fiscally stressed states, as a proportion of revenue deficit were Kerala, Punjab and West Bengal. There used to be 3 basically states that were fiscally stressed if we talk about from the proportion of revenue deficit. Otherwise, most of the states were revenue surplus. But after that, now there are fiscally stressed states that are now 7 if we talk in context of revenue deficit. So one thing they are saying, fiscal deficit has reduced, but revenue deficit has not reduced. So the question comes, if I have to reduce the revenue deficit, what could be the roadmap to reduce the revenue deficit? The first point that they are saying is, it is imperative for the center to make sure whenever they are providing loans to the states, they need to be interest free. Why? Because if they are not interest free, that interest has to be paid from states to the center. If that interest basically becomes a part of the revenue expenditure, that is a proportion of, or we can say component of, revenue deficit. So this is the first point they are saying. Second part they are saying is, as we did in FRBM Act, right, we had a particular time frame where we have a definite roadmap that we want to reduce the revenue deficit by this particular year. So there needs to be a definite roadmap to reduce the revenue deficit, and there shall be a certain targets to reduce the revenue deficit. So these are the points that have been highlighted in this particular editorial. The question over here they have said is, yes, fiscal deficit is reducing. They have given the points. But revenue deficit has increased after the COVID-19 pandemic. How we can solve that problem? They have said these are the two ways through which we can solve this particular problem. I hope this point is clear to everybody and you are able to understand this particular editorial, that is the macro view of the fiscal health of the states. हाँ जी, यहाँ तक सबको clear है? Rajinder Kondela ji, see, one thing I want to tell you, that this is the session that I take over here has to be 70% English and 30% Hindi. It has to be like that only. It can't be 100% because I have both the audience that I have to cater to, that is both the English audience and as well as the Hindi audience, right? So I try to make sure that I cover in 70% in English and 30% in Hindi, right? Okay. Sir, when monthly compilation? See, there is no monthly compilation for this, right? It will be uploaded on Telegram channel. Wait and watch over there. You will get the let's say the you can get the compilation over there. Okay. Now, the next editorial that is important is antibiotics with promise, a lifeline India awaits. Now, they have given a situation, they have given a case study where there was a young boy that was fighting for his life because he was hit by a particular drug resistant strain, and where doctors gave the last of the last medicines that is being given to treat a certain bacteria. It was not being effective. So what did the doctors do? So this is the whole situation that they have tried to explain in this particular editorial, antibiotics with promise. So what is the situation? Let's try to see. They used a particular drug that has been made by India by the name of cefepime or zidabectam. Very important. They have made a drug called the cefepime and the zidabectam. Now, this is not a drug that has been given final approval. It is still in its testing phase, and you can say it is in its phase 3 trials. But because of the emergency that was there, because no other antibiotic was able to treat that particular boy, they used that particular drug as an exception for that drug resistant strain. We call this particular process as emergency use authorization. Very important. This we call it as the emergency use authorization. As a result, when this particular drug was given, that has not been given the final approval, it led to that particular boy showing signs of recovery, his cells getting better, and he was able to survive. So as a result, this editorial talks about that we need to focus on these particular drugs that has a certain promise. Like I have given the case example of an Indian drug over here. They have also given an example of a Japanese drug by the name of cefidrochol, who has the similar properties that is able to fight that drug resistant strains that are there in this particular today's world. So these are the points that they have tried to tell you, and they are saying that we need to focus on these antibiotics. Yes, it is not given final approval, it is still in its testing phase, but we need to make sure that there are certain antibiotics we need to give them an exception because they show signs of promise. And what we have seen in this particular case, as a result, they have talked about this particular process by the name of emergency use authorization. Right? So this is the thing that you have to understand in this particular editorial. Okay. Okay, moving on, there is nothing important. This is all we have discussed in the previous sessions. That is the Karnataka's open market sales scheme. They have not got the food grains, right? So instead of giving food grains, because they have not got it from the center, they are now giving the cash to the people. So this is the problem that they have highlighted over here. This is related to USA situation, the student debt crisis in the USA. No need to discuss on this particular topic, right? Okay. So this is all related to Manipur. This is related to Uniform Civil Code. There is nothing that we need to discuss in this particular article, right? So there is all the political news that is coming all and all over again. This is related to wrestlers, right? This is related to Congress giving allegation on the Modi government. So this is all the matter that they have tried to tell us about. Okay. Now, every day there is a particular news that is there in our world page related to Israel and Palestine. Now, I have told you in yesterday's class that we need to learn the map of the West Asia. In today's class, we will try to see the map of the Western Asia region, right? So that we guys have a certain basic understanding how the map of West Asia looks like. I think everyone is able to see over here. Give me a confirmation if you are able to see the map of West Asia over here. Say yes or no. Hanji. If you are able to see the map, do let me know. Yes, right? Okay. Now, this is Egypt, right? Let's try to see. Okay. Okay. This is Egypt, this is Israel, this is Lebanon, this is Syria, Iraq, we have Kuwait over here, right? We have Turkey over here, we have Saudi Arabia over here, we have Yemen over here, we have Oman over here, we have UAE over here, right? This is the area, we can call it the Jordan area. You see Jerusalem over here. So Jerusalem is the area in the Palestine part that I told you that day, that this is Israel. Let's say this is West Bank Palestinian part. There is a very ancient, or we could say historic city, important for both the Jews, for the Muslims and for the Christians as well. That is by the name of Jerusalem, right? So this is the thing that you need to understand about the West Asia map, that this map is very important. Every day make sure that you keep a separate, let's say 5 to 10 minutes to see this map of West Asia, because it is the most absolute important map of the West Asia region. Okay. Now coming back to the newspaper. So nothing important over here that we need to discuss, right? चलिए यहाँ पे भी इकोनॉमिक्स में कुछ नहीं है. यहाँ पे इन्होंने एक चीज बताई है. They are talking about the inequality that has been widening in the state of Maharashtra. See, one thing I need to tell you, it's a part of economics, so I want to tell you, there are 3 types of curve that tells us about the inequality in economics, right? So I will write down the names as well. Inequality, how it is being checked. I will not be explaining them fully, but I will be just mentioning the names. First is the Lorenz curve. Second is Gini coefficient. And third is the Kuznets curve. So these are the 3 curves that we have that basically tells us about the inequality that is prevalent in the countries, in the states, and between the cities, or between the, let's say, tehsils as well, right? So these are the 3 points, or the 3 inequalities curves that you need to remember: Lorenz curve, Gini coefficient, and Kuznets curve. Okay. So let me come to the final page for today, right? That is a particular disease by the name of leptospirosis. Very important. See, this particular disease, if I talk about, comes from the urine of certain species of animals like rats, cattle, pigs, right? Or you can say water buffaloes, dogs, horses, and sheep. So this is basically a disease that basically spreads among animals, but has occasionally been transmitted to humans as well, who basically work in agricultural fields, right? Who work in the agricultural fields, they are being known or susceptible to this particular type of infection, what we call it as the leptospirosis. Now this disease, very important, it is called Illi Jawara in Kannada, very important. Now we have seen in UPSC, there are a lot of questions that come from science background. So this is not the thing that you will find in any book or something like that, but this is important. It is called Illi Jawara in Kannada, Allipanni in Malayalam, both meaning rat fever. Now everyone think that this is certain type of rat fever, but this is a misnotion or a misconception that it can only come from the urine of the rats. No. It can be a spectrum of reservoir host, including pigs, cattle, water buffalo, goats, dogs, horses, and sheep. So this is a thing that you need to understand. Human become part of the cycle when they come in contact with direct contact with urine or indirectly through soil and water that contains this particular leptospira bacteria. A person is more also susceptible if he has certain type of cut or abrasions on the skin. So this is the thing that you need to know about this particular, if we talk about leptospirosis disease, that is called by the leptospira bacteria, that is passed through the urine, or it could be from the spectrum of host reservoirs, that are the goats, sheep, horses, dogs and rats and water buffaloes, right? And it could come from the soil or it could come from the water, and those persons who are more susceptible, those who are basically working in the agricultural fields, and it is known as Illi Jwara in Kannada and Alli Panni in Malayalam. Right guys, I hope you liked the analysis, I hope you enjoyed the new method. Now what we are trying to do over here, that we try to make sure that everything is covered through this particular flow chart so that you guys are able to remember this particular news. Right guys, chaliye. If you have any doubt, you can ask me, then I'm gonna end the session. Meanwhile, I will be exporting this particular PDF, right? Okay. Is this thing clear to everybody, right? So thank you so much guys. We will see each other tomorrow, same time, 9 AM. Till then, take care, bye bye and have a good day. Thank you so much. See, PDF would be shared on the Telegram channel, right? Those who have not subscribed to the Telegram channel, please subscribe it. There it will be sent to the Telegram channel.